Hey, welcome back to Founders Club. I'm Alex Lagos, and today we're joined by a truly unique force in the world of wellness and creativity. Kayce Laine is a certified sound, crystal, and Reiki practitioner based in Nashville, Tennessee, whose background as a musician gives her an extraordinary edge in the art of vibrational healing. Her journey began in songwriting and led her deep into the realms of sound healing, crystal therapy, and energy work, culminating in a diploma from the Sound Healing Academy and with a mission to train practitioners globally. Her work has reached organizations like TikTok, Lululemon, Music Cares, and Soho House, and even headlined a sound healing event with the Nashville Symphony, which, that's nuts. She moved beyond simply offering sessions to running mentorship programs, launching her own business building curriculum for sound practitioners specifically, and hosting a podcast that demystifies how to build a practice rooted in purpose and vibration. Before we jump in, as usual, hit the episode description for links to the Founders Club app and more, where you'll find content, resources, information about our monthly events, all the things. We're so happy to have you. Let's get into it.
Kayce, my fellow cat-loving healer. Welcome to the show.
I love that cats are already coming into the conversation.
As quickly as I can get them anywhere. It's always cats. Bring back cats,
Right?
We're rebranding them.
I love it.
Okay, well, speaking of branding, for anyone who doesn't know who you are, tell us about you. Tell us about why you're in the room with us today.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me in the room with you guys. I feel like this is going to be a fun conversation and kind of getting into the business side of things that I don't usually get to get into. So yeah, I am a full-time sound practitioner, musician, started off as a musician in Nashville, Tennessee, and I teach and mentor other sound healers. I have a course, I sell crystal singing bowls. I'm kind of a one-stop shop for sound healing things.
Okay, so sound healing.
Yes.
I know what that is because I've taken Kayce's course. However, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, what is sound healing?
So my favorite way to kind of describe what it is to think about the way that sound impacts all of us on a daily basis. Like, we wake up to alarms, people honk their horns to get our attention. We have sounds that come from our phones and technology to get our attention. And so our nervous system and our sense of hearing are super tied together, and we spend all day kind of like bracing for impact, if you will. And so when we do a sound healing session or go to a sound bath or anything like that, we're working with that relationship in the opposite way. So we're listening and playing, if you are facilitating, instruments that are kind of designed to relax the nervous system, get you into rest and digest so your body can heal itself. You can kind of like calm your mind down. It works on a number of different levels, but it's been a cool pivot as a musician to kind of get into all of this.
Yeah, take us back there. So you said you came to Nashville to pursue music?
Yeah, I did. Yep. I lived in New York City for 5 years where I did music full time, teaching piano lessons, voice lessons, playing in like 5 different bands at a time and kind of touring with a few of them and releasing my own music. And it was just like being young, wild, and free in New York. And it was very fun.
Where are you from originally?
Virginia Beach.
Okay.
Chesapeake, Virginia, but like right outside of Virginia Beach.
Did you go to New York to pursue music as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got offered to play synths and sing in an indie electro pop band.
Wow. Could we find that on Spotify?
Yeah, we were called Blip Blip Bleep. And it was a really, really fun, dancey pop group. And I played 2 micro chords stacked on each other and sang. And it was honestly like some of my best memories was like playing in that band and just like, wearing skimpy clothes on stage and running around and we're doing the young, wild, and free
That's
thing.
going to have to get edited.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're just going to have to cut to a clip of that post-production for sure. Incredible.
There's plenty of it out there, yeah.
Okay, so you're in New York, and what brought you to, how'd you find your way to Nashville?
Yeah, so very weird, like, synchronicities happened around my first trip out here. I had made a record with a band in LA. They originally were going to like finalize the record in LA, and I booked a show in LA. I like had this LA boyfriend and I like was going to LA. And at this point I was like very much a city snob, like the idea of Nashville is just like not even on my record, right? Like it was nowhere. So
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It was a totally different city back then, too.
It was. I mean, yeah, this was just over 10 years ago. And then a couple weeks out, the lead guy of the band was like, hey, we're actually going to be mixing in Nashville. And I was like, no, like I already had a show booked. I'd never canceled a show before. Had to cancel the show. He came out here. And I actually had this moment where I journaled in my journal. And I was like, if I go to Nashville, I'm going to meet someone who wants to work with me and we're going to make music together and this trip is going to like change my life. And then I came out here and met this dude and he and I made a record together. The part that I didn't manifest was that we would fall in love. And so then I had to move here to be with him. And so that happened
More than
literally.
what you bargained for.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I really tried not to. I was like, it was hard to put on the brakes.
Tried to separate that church and state, just couldn't work.
Exactly.
Okay, well, we were going to get to this chapter, but I couldn't help but be curious about the journaling piece. So you said you were writing in your journal and you said, tell us again what it was that you said in there?
I just said, I'm going to meet someone in Nashville that's going to want to make a record with me and it's going to change my life. And then it did. I've had a couple of cool, I do. And I had another one when I got here, and not to like fast forward too much, but once I moved here, I had to get a job because I left my band in New York, and it was not so easy to just like plug in a new life and music career in Nashville, Tennessee, even though I thought like, oh, if I can do it in New York, I can do it anywhere. But I got here and got a day job as a publicist. And before it was actually a job for me, the wife of the dude whose record it was out in LA, she owns this PR firm. And she was like, hey, can you come temp for me for 2 weeks? I just need an assistant. My assistant is taking a 2-week leave. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I showed up, did it for 2 weeks, and then literally was journaling that night how it was like I had like 2 more days left of that 2-week stint. And I was journaling how she was going to need me and really like writing out, okay, this is why she should hire me. And this is what I'm going to kind of pitch to her. As I'm journaling that, she calls me and tells me the girl is not coming back.
Wow.
Do I want this job full time? And I said yes. And then I was there for 5 years, and it was a pretty cool moment.
Yeah.
Clearly, I need to start journaling.
No kidding. No kidding.
Honestly, I had gotten into a book in my New York days called Creative Visualization by Shakti Gawain. And it was kind of my like intro into kind of like spirituality, manifestation, visualization. And I also had read this book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And I did that. And it was just like this time in my life where I feel like I really manifested some cool stuff and it was working. So I just kind of kept doing it.
Yeah, it sounded like you were really setting the intention of what you wanted to do, and that was realized.
Yeah.
So you get to Nashville, you meet your now husband, right? But it sounds like you were working together.
Yeah, we worked on a record, but apparently when you are dating your producer, your stuff gets pushed down the list of priorities because you're not paying them anymore. So
Oh, yeah, the money.
yeah. So the money thing, it made the record take forever. And so, yeah, literally somehow 5 years I was a publicist and like banging my head against the wall trying to make this record, and got really into it. And during that time I was like really struggling with my identity and who I was, because up until then I'd just been this like, young, wild, free rocker chick with the half head shaved and like, the whole persona that I'd been up until that point. And then suddenly I was like corporate girly and had to like go, I had to get a purse, and I'd never even had a purse before. It was like my publicist purse that could like fit my laptop, like, all of these little things, and meeting new people. And they're like, what do you do? Oh, I'm a publicist. And it just like always felt so wrong and out of alignment. And then, ultimately I ended up like moving up in the company really quickly and was head of the Nashville office. And I kind of like embodied it a bit more, making a little more money and kind of being like, okay, yeah, I can do this. I can be a publicist. This is cool. I still get to like have fun and do some cool stuff. And it did work for a while, and then it didn't.
What was the breaking point, or the point at which you decided I can't do this anymore?
There were a couple things that happened. I kind of had this rock bottom moment with not having my voice and not singing, not performing, not having any music to show people, where I kind of like realized that I needed to start performing again, and just made it like every month I have to show up at a writer's round, like a open mic, whatever it was, anywhere I could, to just sing, because that's how I had, up to that point in my life, that's always how I'd express myself and like processed emotions and all of these things I didn't really realize until it was gone. And so when I ended up kind of settling on the job and started moving through once a month performing, I also simultaneously was getting into different types of meditation, and did transcendental meditation and started getting into crystal healing and Reiki, and like this whole other thing was kind of bubbling up and brewing. And so I started really getting into all of that and kind of doing this stuff on the side while I had the day job. And my boss didn't really like that too much, because if you were to go to my Instagram page for, what'd you say?
It shifted.
Yeah, it was very much like, come book a session with me. Here's what I'm doing, whatever. And I think that kind of bothered her a little bit. And she made a comment, and I was like, okay, somehow I'm going to turn, this is now her idea that it's time for me to go. And this was also 2020 era. And a lot of our clients were health and wellness clients, and they were all great, but it was a lot of fear every day. I was like having to watch the news and like pay attention to all of the stuff going on. And it was just taking a toll on me mentally. I just wanted to not be a part of the cycle. And so, I ended up in April of 2021 telling her, or actually I told her in February, and then my last day was March 31st. And then April 1st was like my first day on my own.
And what were your offerings initially? You said you were doing crystal healing and Reiki. Were you doing sound healing yet at that point?
I was doing sound, yeah. So at this point, I'd gone through a handful of different certification programs.
Okay.
And that was about 2 years from 2018 when I got started my first certification. And then, so this was mid 2021 that I finished my level 2. And so, I was doing one-to-one sessions with Reiki, crystals, and sound. And I was still teaching piano lessons. I was like, I'm going back to all those things. Like, I didn't necessarily only want to do the sound healing stuff. I wanted to also, I taught piano lessons for a really long time. So I wanted to get some students. I love doing that. And so I was doing private music lessons and the sound healing stuff, and then group stuff too.
Okay. So private lessons, sound healing stuff, and then group stuff. And it sounds like at this point you reach a place where you're like, you know what? I think I can make a business out of this. Like I can survive off of this. Yeah,
I was kind of like, I learned how to figure it out in New York and live off of very little income. And I think I would rather trade that life for the life I have now, and I'd rather, be broke and doing something I'm really into, as opposed to working a job that didn't feel in alignment. And I also felt guilty too, because I felt like, I was taking someone's dream job. It was a really great job for someone, and I just felt like it wasn't my dream job, and I was taking up that spot for someone else that would have appreciated it more. So it just felt like that was the move.
Yeah, it sounds like it was so out of alignment. And then also it's like, okay, even if you're making a ton of money, at what cost, right? Like you weren't enjoying it, and you knew that your calling was something more musical or healing oriented.
Exactly.
How'd you think about, like, because what stops a lot of people is, when you work a job, somebody else brings the clients in. My job is to serve the clients, and by doing that, I get a paycheck.
Yeah.
The go out and fish is really what stops many people from taking that first jump.
Yeah, it wasn't easy.
Like take me back to like as you're journaling or as you're like putting together your plan before you make the jump. Like what was your plan there, and what advice would you give to somebody else who's like trying to put that plan together right now?
Yeah, I was really wanting to focus on working with other musicians, and I wanted to offer pre-performance sessions to help with performance anxiety, because that's something that I struggled with personally, as well as like pre-recording session, let's write a song together session. Because when you're in a sound healing session, it not only helps with your nervous system and relaxing you, but it also does open you up to creative flow. So that's really what I started kind of pitching myself out to. And I was a publicist, which was convenient because I learned how to pitch.
It's a handy skill.
So and so I learned how to be proactive and start, being a little bit persistent, if you will, with some people. So I was able to get some stuff, but I had to really push for it. I had to really map it out and journal it out. When I do my journaling, it was a lot of business planning happening in those pages, and who can I reach out to? Oh, I should reach out to this person. Okay, now that's in my calendar. Find the contact for this company, or, whatever it was. And so, yeah, that's one thing I would say. And, I did a podcast on pitching for my own podcast about pitching, because I do think it's something that people need to not be afraid to do, because if I had just waited for opportunities to come to me, I would be in a very different place right now. It definitely took a lot of effort and being, like I said, really proactive and pitching and following up again, and maybe showing up and having being very visible and putting myself out there as much as I could. And that is, I think, where a lot of people will fall off, because you can get rejected. And so I think people don't want to necessarily put themselves out there in that way.
Yeah, I think
of that fear.
There's a lot of vulnerability in the fear of being rejected. And then I think for a lot of people, it's like they just don't know where to start, right?
Yeah.
So do you recall what that looked like for you? Were you like, okay, I'm going to identify my target audience, and then I'm going to come up with it. Like, was there any structure to it? Or what advice would you give people who don't know where to start?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely reached out to people like women in music, and offering free sound baths for people who would come to my house, and would, kind of pitch them with what I was doing and show them what it really is. Because not everyone knows what a sound bath is, as we know. So it took some of that, and I think not being afraid to, offer it to people for free, just because they don't really know what it is until they experience it. And that's a pretty good pitch if you get to have a really blissful sound bath experience, and people are like, okay, yeah.
Can I just say how much I love that you're saying this? Because I think too often in our world, in our community, it's like, don't give anything away for free. Know your worth, always charge. And it's like, there's actually a place for a free offering, right? Totally. Especially if it's going to be a potential client acquisition strategy, and it's going to allow people to understand actually experientially, right? So many things, of course, what you're offering, it is a product, but it's not something that somebody's like holding in their hand, or they can look at online and be like, oh, I kind of know how that's going to be. Right. They have to experience it to really know just how powerful it is, right? So it sounds like you didn't let ego get in the way there, and you were like, no, I'm just going to do some of this stuff for free and get the word out. And that was effective.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I offered lots of free things to the Nashville Symphony before that ultimately turned into a thing. And, I think for the right people, knowing when it's worth your time to offer something free, I think it's absolutely helped me. I offered a lot of free things at the beginning,
and it sounds
not
like
so much now, but
well, exactly. There's a place for it, right? And it sounds like you probably did that like a group model. It's not like you're offering free one-on-one sessions, but you're like, hey, everybody sort of come for this free experience, and then that's the way to reach more people.
Totally,
and only have to do it, do it fewer times.
So a question that I get asked a lot. So something that the three of us have in common is we host a monthly event at a members club. That's an internationally known members club, and all the time, I'm sure you get asked too. It's like, how did you form that partnership? And I'm curious. Like the pitch for that is a little bit different than the pitch, directly for something. We have a story in terms of how that came to life, but what advice would you give for somebody trying to follow? Yeah.
Really? I mean, as soon as I found out that was opening here, I don't even know how I ended up finding some random email for some random person, and I emailed them, and I'm like, I know the lights aren't on yet, but do you want a sound bath? And I really tried to get them as soon as I knew that they were going to exist, because I knew that was going to be something that other people were going to, I wanted to be first, and I did offer them a free session, and now I do a membership trade, and I think it's totally worth that. And they do actually pay me some on top of that, but for the most part, that's the trade. Yeah. And I do think it's worth it with them.
Totally. Because I bet you get one-on-one clients from that too, right?
Totally. Yeah. I've gotten so many, in corporate stuff. I did a whole thing with TikTok last year where I did quarterly sound baths for them, and that person found me there. And so it's really been a cool networking experience. That's how I met you.
It is how we met. Yeah. I met at one of your events.
And maybe no, we have mutual friends,
but but I've seen you at Cells many times.
Exactly.
I've been to
it like solidified things.
Yes, exactly. We're the same people.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, Kayce, like you've just given these great examples of all of your different offerings, right? Like as we said, I mean, you've really excelled in scaling, and one thing you haven't talked too much about is your trainings. So tell us about that. Like, what's that model, and how'd you get involved in that?
So when I left, or when I graduated with my diploma from the Sound Healing Academy, I immediately emailed my own tutor, Natalie, and I was like, hey, I'm just so you guys know, if you're ever looking for anyone to work with you guys, I am doing, like, I'm done. Like, I don't have a job. So like, this is it. I'm doing this. I have the time and I have the background as a teacher, you know, even though I never taught groups, but I taught private lessons for a long time, and I have the music background. I was like, you know, if you ever need people. And she's like, actually, we're looking for some more tutors, just online tutors. I was like, great, I will do that. So I started off with them for about 1.5 years tutoring online students, because at this point they hadn't really started doing the in-person workshops because of COVID. Like they kind of shut all that down. And so eventually though, they did start building those up. And it was funny because when they first approached me with it, they were telling me that I was going to start running these workshops all over the place. And I was like, immediate no. I was like, this is not what I signed up for. I don't know how to teach a group of people. That's terrifying. I'm going to have to, you know, these are two, you know, from 10 to 5 p.m. These are long days. I have to sit up there, like it was so overwhelming, and I had to do 10 a year. And it was, it just was like a total no for me. And I had all of this resistance. And then eventually I was like, you know what, I'm going to just try this. And so they honestly didn't really give me that much of a choice. But after I taught my very first workshop, this was in the summer of 22, it was so great. It was the most fun experience. And I felt like I was able to reach people in a new way. I feel like it actually was at least somewhat entertaining and not this like boring lecture for 2 days in a row where people just like were falling asleep, you know? And I feel like I was able to engage them, and I could kind of see like, okay, this is a ripple effect. Because the other part of the no was, why would I teach all these people in my city how to do what I do? That's like suicide. Why would I want to saturate my own market? And that was kind of the mentality. I had this like scarcity mindset around it. And so once I did a few of them and realized, okay, yes, there are way more sound healers in Nashville now because of these trainings that I've done, but also everyone's so different. Not everyone's going to actually, you know, try to pursue it full time. People, you know, you included, you know, you just kind of come.
I just want to be able to play the balls, or the balls. I mean, I just want to be able to play the bowls at home by myself, like when I just want to make some sounds, you know, like I have no desire to play for anybody else.
Yeah,
maybe a client here or there, but
exactly.
You know,
And so there's a lot of that. And then there are people who are really into it. And those are people that are now super good friends of mine. They've done level 1, level 2. We refer each other for opportunities. And it's a great community that I've kind of built here, and then also in my other markets where I do them in Virginia Beach. I go home to do those there every year, and also Atlanta is the other market that I teach in. So it's been really cool because I've connected with people all over the place. Not everyone is coming here to a Nashville workshop who lives in Nashville. There's people who come from all over. So yeah, I've had students all over the place, and it's cool. I've got buddies in all the different cities everywhere. And
I think that's, you touched on something really important, which is this idea of like the scarcity mindset versus the abundance mindset, if we want to use that language. But, you know, all of us are in professions where there's, of course, competition, right? And there's demand, but there's also supply, and those things change, and AI is changing everything, you know? And how do you manage any of those feelings of, you know, scarcity or competition? Like, how do you maintain the confidence that it seems you have that's like, no, like there's enough room for all of us here?
It's taken some time. You know, I think just doing it enough and kind of being like, actually, this is a great thing for me. It puts me in a place where I'm not necessarily relying on every gig every day. You know, I can choose the gigs that I want to do because I'm making income in other ways. So then I can do like the Frist Art Museum 3 times a year, and, you know, the Nashville Symphony now, and really just only do public events that feel like they're worth my time and energy and all of that, because my sound baths have also kind of taken on a new form in the past year or so. And
How so?
so I've started incorporating synth bass because the experience, while it is great, I just kind of wanted to, I wanted to start singing again and using my voice as a part of the experience. And you really need a microphone. You really need that reverb, make it really ambient, like very, drenched in reverb vocals to make it the effect that I want. And with that, I do feel like it just begs for the bass. So my husband and I have created these bass tracks that I play the bowls over, and I'm singing at certain points. And so it's made it a little more of a musical experience. And that's what I did at the symphony earlier this year. And it'll be different for the next symphony event because I'll have actual symphony players for that, which will be very cool. And they'll take over the synth part. So I don't need my computer, which will be amazing. So cool. But yeah, so I've just tried to kind of, change what I'm doing to fit my talent, I guess, or fit my areas that I know that like not everyone can sing, not everyone has a husband who can create really nice sounding tracks for them. I've been really fortunate with that. Yeah. And when I played in my solo band in New York, I was triggering tracks on Ableton, and my computer was my bandmate for that. So it's been kind of a cool way to bring some of that same energy into what I'm doing. And then as far as the scarcity thing, I think differentiating myself has been a big part of that, like I said. And, offering my course, having multiple streams of income, I think has, I always tell people it's like when you're working for someone else, it's like that is your like rock of support underneath you. It's like this one big rock, right? And like that can feel deceivingly safe. And I think that we think that that is the safe way, but really like that could be taken away at any point. There, when I had the day job, there was never this like, oh, I'm never going to have to worry about anything again. Like there's always that chance something could happen. My boss could sell the company. They could decide Nashville isn't lucrative and pull out the Nashville office, whatever it would be. And so as a business owner now, I just see all of these like little pebbles underneath me, these little rocks that I've been able to kind of stand on, knowing that if one of them fell away, I would be okay. And so that's been really helpful for me to be like, okay, if I never played another sound bath again, could I survive? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Then it's okay.
Yes.
I'll be all right.
Totally. That diversification, it sounds like, has been so important for that trust and trusting like, okay, if either like another human or computer takes over this industry, then I have other options.
Yeah.
What's helped you with that mindset, Megan? Because in your space, actually for the audience, for anybody that doesn't know, what do you do for a living? And
yes, I'm a therapist and executive coach. But like Kayce, I feel like I have a number of different revenue streams. I have a podcast as well called The Failure Factor. I write for Forbes. I do some group work, and I do individual therapy and coaching, and I have a couple of associates underneath me who also do therapy and coaching. I'm in the midst of finishing a manuscript, like next week, hopefully. Yes, for my first book, which will be published with Pezzy, which is a clinical organization. So it's not going to be like a layperson book, but it'll be hopefully very helpful for therapists, and that will hopefully have a similar kind of opportunity in terms of being able to train a lot of therapists underneath me with my framework. And yeah, there's lots of possibility that come from that. But I think, it's interesting. Obviously the question is personal to me that I ask it because I struggle with that. Like there are moments where I'm like, oh, like I got this, like there's enough room for all of us. There are enough, unfortunately or fortunately, there's enough suffering in this world, right? That like people need support. They need coaching, they need therapy, they need sound healing, right? And I'm a big believer that pain and suffering isn't necessarily a negative thing. I think suffering is what we alchemize into art and wisdom and empathy and compassion and humor and connection and vulnerability and all these things. So I do believe that everything is unfolding as it's supposed to in our world right now. But to answer your question, Vince, like I think in some moments I remind myself that there's enough room for all of us. Like we are going to constantly need more healers. And also like, I'm just like you, Kayce, like what I offer is different than your average coach or therapist. And a lot of people don't want to work with me, right? But there are a lot of people who do. And you know, those people will find me, I trust. But similarly, I think diversification is important. You know, I think and then at the end of the day, and this is something I teach clients as well, I think it's easy to get caught in that mindset of sort of things outside of ourselves that we need to cling to. But at the end of the day, we need to look inward and be like, okay, I'm a really fucking resilient human. You know, like I've been through a lot of shit. Like, and also like, yes, if AI, because I keep bringing that up, because I really do think at some point AI is going to take over at least most therapy and coaching. You know, I think it's like, we compare it to maybe a massage where obviously like at the end of the day, it's nicer to have real human hands on you. But if we have these robot massages that are coming in and if they're like way less expensive and almost as effective and they get like the warming right and stuff like that, then yeah, like people who are really wealthy are still going to pay for the human. But a lot of people who are getting therapy and coaching. Have you seen these ads?
I mean, I've seen I have a friend who actually was part of training some of them. My friend
really,
from New York, who she was helping to train the robots to do massage.
And they're only going to get better, right? Like
I have no desire for that. Massage is my thing. That I do it about once every month to 6 weeks, and there's no part of me that feels like that's going to be tempting.
I know that like you can get a human massage, and I might die as a result of it, but I feel like it's much less likely.
Right? I just see that
like the probability,
crushing.
The probability. It's just like, and like, I don't want to be a post-mortem in some tech company going, well, what happened to that guy? Well, you know, the sensitivity sensor malfunctioned.
Okay, right. But you know what? Like, we're getting on a tangent here about AI, but okay, I think that there is like, what do you call the like where you're plotting things on like a line and there's like the graphs and I don't know. I mean, there's a word for it, but essentially, we're looking at like risk of death, we'll say, right? But also with like a whole bunch of other kind of factors. And so, for example, like, would you drive in a Waymo right now, right? Would you drive in an autonomous car? Yes. Okay. So you drive an autonomous car, no. But see, Kayce says no, right? And I'd probably be no as well, but you would say yes. And there's going to come a point where we're all going to say yes. Same thing with like an autonomous plane. At some point, we're all going to be like, yeah, that's actually safer than human air. There's going to come a point where a lot of the stuff is safer than human air. Yeah. I mean, we do that nowadays with flights anyway. Autopilot. I'd much rather it be on autopilot than like have the pilot like, you know, in the middle of the night on the 16-hour flight or whatever it is.
One exception, Captain Sully. I would take Captain Sully any day.
Any day.
Love him.
Yes.
But exactly. you drove up here today to this podcast studio in a Tesla.
Yes, but I did drive it myself only because I just don't pay for the.
Have you tried full self-driving?
I have tried it. I think I don't like feeling so out of control, which is probably something about me. But also, actually, you know what? I was driving with
my freakishly good, but it's anxiety inducing.
But it's not perfect. Like there was, you know, with Nashville, I mean, we have so many lanes, and there was a semi that was like changing the lane right as the Tesla was changing lane into the semi. And like my husband was like, oh shit, like grabs the wheel and swerves out of the way. But this is all just to say that like right now, I think there are a lot of things that AI has not perfected.
I think that's right.
But I think at some point, there are a lot of things that we will ultimately choose the AI version over the human version. Now, my hope is that things that have this sort of energetic je ne sais quoi, such as sound healing, therapy, massage, things like that, we're not going to get there quite yet. But then we have to ask, okay, well, if one is $20 and one is $500, or if one is free, you know, it's just you pay a membership for this AI chatbot or whatever, and it's almost as good as like, or it is better than probably most therapists. Yeah. And maybe you're putting on your VR headset and it's like holographic and like you're having the same neurons that are lighting up. Like, I think we'll get there at some point, you know? It terrifies me. Yeah. But also I try to be humble and be like, you know what? I bet there were a lot of people in the Industrial Revolution who were terrified by the Industrial Revolution, right? And look where it's gotten us. So long way to answer the question about what I do is like, okay, you know what? If therapy, let's say, and coaching is taken over by AI, like, well, maybe at that point we'll all have universal basic income and the billionaires won't have taken over. They'll have pound of heart because like they'll have had enough coaching and they'll get their empathy and their compassion. And then that means that, you know, we'll all be in this utopian society and we'll be able to just drop into like what gives us a sense of meaning. I'll just like hang out with my cats and play my sound bowls and, you know, so
live happily ever after.
Yes, exactly. So that's what I try to tell myself. But I do think turning inward, focusing on one's resilience, knowing like I've been in challenging situations before, I'm creative, I'm innovative, I can pivot. Like
I can ask chat what to do.
Exactly. I'll find a way to be relevant. Yes. I will ask ChatGPT to tell me how to be relevant in this world.
I've had a conversation not about I feel weirdly, maybe ignorantly, like safe in what I do, because not only do I think the teaching in person is so powerful, experiencing the instruments in person is so powerful. Obviously I sell instruments. I think, AI can't really do that. But my husband Tim does, audio engineering and production. And that's all right now is really weird, because there's a company that's bought a DAW, a digital audio workstation, where, like Pro Tools or Logic or, all of those different programs that producers use that this AI company has bought. And the notion is that it's probably just going to be able to mix, master, produce all these things. So Tim is like at home actually right now. I just left a co-write with someone where we wrote a song with, he's got a subscription to the producer's AI thing, and now writing songs with chat. And he's looking at it as he needs to stay one step ahead of it.
Yes.
But he's also equated it to things like autotune. When autotune first came out, people were like, that's fake, that's not real, like you're making it cheaper, drum machines, even just working in computers and doing all that stuff. It was there's tons of resistance at first, and then it just kind of became the way everyone did everything, because it was smarter, not harder or whatever. And so now that's where we're at with things, and it's
really interesting
weird.
because like when you look across like all industries right now, if you survey frontline leaders, frontline managers, those are the people that are scared of AI the most, but they're also the ones for the people that are implementing the AI getting the most value out of the AI. And of all groups, executives, mid-level managers, it's actually the entrepreneurs that are least scared. Like this has been a upsetting, depressing conversation about the robot massage, and I think all three of us need to go contribute more to our 401k just in case.
Yeah.
But like the thing that I essentially heard you say is like, well, I've had to add more pebbles to stand on. I'll go find another pebble. It might be a different pebble than the pebble that we're standing on today, but we'll find a pebble.
Yeah. And my hope is that if we reach a point where everyone's pebbles are disappearing, like we're all going to be in it together in some way, and we're going to have to innovate as a group. And I think similar to during the pandemic when so many people lost their jobs or weren't able to work as much, the one thing that was like different about that was there wasn't as much shame about losing work, right? Like it was like, oh, me too. Like, and I think there's going to be a bit of that that's happening with this shift that we're on the cusp of, where a lot of people's jobs become obsolete. And of course, they are going to have to either like retrain or pivot or become more entrepreneurial. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to take advantage of AI to do something entrepreneurial. But I think they won't have the shame that we typically would when we're like, oh no, I like don't have a job anymore. It's like, no, everyone's in this together. Like this isn't a you problem. This is
fascinatingly like the biggest conversation that I feel like is not actually happening in society right now.
Yeah.
Like when you take a look at like as a country, we are working to bring manufacturing back into the US, right? Super exciting. You got, IBM and Apple has announced manufacturing in the US, which I never thought would happen. But I feel like the biggest one is actually this AI job disruption that we're not talking about.
Honestly, like when the pandemic happened, I remember when they started doing lockdowns and I was like, this is going to be really fucking bad for people's mental health. Like I was like, I'm saying it now. This was like day, like whatever. I was like, I'm not going to I was like, it must be, I don't know. I just trust everybody knows what they're doing. They're making the right decisions, but like this one's going to be really bad for mental health. And like, obviously years later, like looking back on the addictions, the domestic violence, the suicide, like the depression. I mean, what kids went through not going to school for a couple of years. I know everybody was doing the best that they could, but I feel like it's a similar situation where like this is happening and it's coming toward us, and people like us are like, like this is something is not great about this, and maybe we should like, I don't know, at least talk about it. And the other thing that's interesting is there's a lot of denial. I think I'll label it as denial. Again, I could be wrong, but I think we might have been talking about this. Like, I feel like I have my friends who are attorneys or my friends who are in consulting. Like, they're like, nope, my job is safe. Like, nope, the AI is not as good. It's not as good as a lawyer. And I'm like,
it's
like,
pretty good.
It's pretty good. And like, again, it's only going to get better. And so I think it is important for those of us who feel like our jobs might be threatened in some way. I don't even know if I want to say the word threatened because that's such a negative connotation, but like it's going to change our jobs in some way to learn how to like use it to our advantage, right? Like, is there a way that we can implement it to, I don't know, only do the things that we really love of our job? Like,
I mean, this might be an extreme statement, but like I strongly feel like the future is going to be people who are unemployed and people employed that are leveraging AI in some type of way. Because like, you know, where I've been able to leverage it the most is honestly the back office crap that I hate doing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Same.
like, you know, there are many things in business that I don't like doing, and like categorizing expenses on a spreadsheet is absolutely.
Oh my
like,
gosh.
I don't think any of us show up and wake up in the morning and go, "Gosh, that gives me so much joy and passion," and I wish it was just like twice as long. But you know, like that touches everything. So we got 5 minutes left, but Kayce, I'm wondering, like, you've talked about your journey, like going, expanding different revenue streams. Like during the tough moments, like we all have those moments.
Like when I cried when Tim was telling me about AI and taking over his job, and artists replacing producers with AI, producers replacing artists with AI. That was
exactly.
It was a really sad. I cried.
Yeah.
I was
Yes,
just
of
like, this
course.
is hard. Like I don't like where this is going. But yeah, sorry. That was like
how, like, what allows you to be able to keep going through those moments?
I just think I don't know, honestly. That's a great question. I think I have an amazing family, and I could cry talking about them at the drop of a hat. I have the most amazing support system with them. I'm super close with my parents and my sisters, and we have a very close-knit family, even though we live very far apart. They are like my secret weapon. I feel like they've always been kind of my secret weapon throughout my life, of just knowing that I have them. If something happens, they're not going to let me fall too far, you know? And even when I was in New York, and I never took money from my dad, I never asked for it. In fact, if he would give me a $20 bill, like as I was leaving from the weekend there, I would like cry and be like, thank you so much, Dad. Because, you know, 20 bucks was a lot in those days for me. Yeah. But knowing that I have that support system, I think is always what's kind of gotten me through any dark moments. And I think they've kind of made me feel this confidence that I can do these things. And, you know, I think I have this kind of fearlessness, and this is like a ridiculous thing to say, but when I was little, I found out that the name Kayce meant brave in Irish. It was like, we had this baby name books from, you know, when my little sister, you know, I'm one of 4 kids. They had a lot of, and they didn't have Google to like, let's think of some creative names, whatever. So we had these baby name books, and this one, it would say Kayce was brave. And I just remember being like, I am brave. And I would like do brave things, whatever that was. And then there was a time in my life where I was like, I'm really not like brave like I was. And then I've had this weird moment recently in the past couple of years of like, you know what, I am brave. I try to put myself in situations that scare me and press and kind of push my boundaries and stretch my nervous system and expand that to new capacities. And I think that's kind of braced me for a lot of things, the good and the bad.
Totally. That's so beautiful, Kayce. It reminds me, I think it's a Susan David quote that says like, courage is fear walking, you know, like, and it's like, doesn't mean you're not scared, right? Like, I'm sure you've gotten up on stage in front of thousands of people many of times. And like you yourself said, struggle with performance anxiety or feeling nervous, right? But like you do it anyway. And I think that's
do it scared.
So powerful. Do it scared. Such a great motto. Last question from me. You mentioned finding your voice, which I think was just like so perfectly encapsulates you and into this interview. And I think for a lot of people, I know for myself at least, when I was trying to figure out like, I don't know, like, do I have what it takes to like work for myself? And do people even want to hear what I have to say? Like, I'm like writing articles, and like, I don't know, like, do people want to really want to pay me to like be their therapist or their coach? And something that I admire in you and your story is that it seems like you're like, you know what? I'm going to like add some synth to this. Like, I'm going to just do this in like my own way. I'm just going to go pitch after pitch after pitch. Like, you seem like you have just been so fearless again, but in not only putting yourself out there, but there's like this confidence in knowing that like what you have to offer is something that people want and something that's valuable for the world. And I think for those of us who I know for sure I've certainly struggled in my journey with like, wow, like self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And like, do I really deserve to have a voice? Do people want to listen to what I have to say? And maybe it's related to this amazing family that you mentioned, but I'm just curious, like how have you found your voice, and what do you recommend for people who are maybe struggling with that doubt about whether or not they like deserve a seat at the table?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think I kind of learned some of that from that job in PR, because
Some persistence.
I was working with these people who were all experts in these different ways, some of them more so experts than others. And I was landing magazine covers and features and podcasts and interviews and TV spots for people where I'm like, the curtain was kind of pulled back on it. And I'm like,
Yes.
okay,
Oh, that's
if
so
this
cool. It's
person,
such a good response.
and sometimes we would even draft their responses for them.
Yeah.
Certain people who didn't have time, and we would write their answers for them, knowing what they would say. We would send it to them for approval and all of that. And I was just like, I mean,
You
I
were the
can
one
do
writing.
that.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
were the one writing.
If I can write this for this
Yeah.
person, I can write it for myself. And just kind of that really was a really big eye-opening thing for me, because not only did it show me that rejection isn't a personal thing, even though, if I get a no, it never feels great, obviously, but I saw it happen enough with my clients who are like, world-renowned fitness experts and whatever they were, and people would say no, they would pass on opportunities with them, and it's like, okay, well, if they get no's, everyone gets no's. Like, this is not because I'm not good enough or smart enough or I don't have enough background or whatever. It just means not right now. Sometimes,
Yes.
like the National Symphony, that was a no for a couple years, and then it was a yes, and it was the yes at the exact right time. And if it had been a yes at the beginning, it would have been a very different experience. And I really learned such a valuable lesson with that too, of just trusting the divine timing of everything. And even if it is a no right now, it may not be a no forever.
Yeah.
And if you think you have something that's cool and will be a nice experience, it's worth pushing through and trying them again in a year,
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kayce. Do you have any final words or any advice for listeners, aspiring entrepreneurs, people who are in the trenches right now? Anything you want to close with?
I think, like I said, just the persistence thing, and honestly, the rejection piece, I think, is a really important one to just kind of take away, is that it really is a redirection. Rejection is redirection, or whatever the saying is. I really believe that. And I think that there's enough people in the world who need so much right now, whether it's the therapy, the business coaching, the apps, whatever it is, there's so many people in the world, and there's such a need in so many different ways that we just have to kind of like take a step back sometimes. I think it's really easy to get super focused in on, your neighborhood, your city, whatever, but, looking at things at a grander scale, I think it's good to keep that perspective that there's enough for everyone.
Love that. For somebody who wants to learn a little bit more about what you're focused on or follow what you're doing, where's the best place to do that?
Probably Instagram at Kayce Laine.
Can you spell that for us?
Kaycelaine. It wasn't spelled that way in the baby name book, but it's
Same
Or
thing.
rewrite the book.
I know. I'm like, it still means brave. Okay. So yeah, I think my Instagram, I'm pretty active on there. And then you can find out, all of my free resources, my new podcast I just launched this year, and all those, learning from me, buying bowls, all that stuff from my website, which is just kaycelaine.com.
And I love that.
Amazing.
And I'm sure we'll put that down below wherever you're watching or listening to this. Kayce, thanks so much.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This is such a good combo.
Yay, so fun.